Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Tiana here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Sonic Colors for the Nintendo DS version. So, last time, we essentially did manage able to take on the forms of Nega, Wisp, Armor, in the forms of Terminal Velocity, and unlike the console version, including Sonic Colors Ultimate, like I stated this before, since in yesterday, there's only one full act, along with the boss fights combined, whilst compared to the forms of how it does it on the console version, including Sonic Colors Ultimate, it usually divides in between Act 1, the final boss, and Act 2, and that pretty much leads us to the true ending, right? Well, usually on the DS version, that's not the case this time around, because if you couldn't tell already, the game itself is not over yet, because actually, as it turns out, it's about the fact that today, this will be the true finale for the entire Let's Play of Sonic Colors for the Nintendo DS version. So because of that, as you can tell about the fact that ever since enjoying the forms of it the past few weekends ago, basically that was about the fact that so far, we did collected about 6 Chaos Emeralds so far, so naturally speaking, where in the world is the 7th and the final one to be exact? Well, actually, as it turns out, it's about the fact that the 7th and the final Chaos Emerald was actually located, bizarrely enough, in Gameland. So, as far as I'm aware, much like the forms of how it does on the Wii version, including Sonic Colors Ultimate, is that you can able to actually interact with the forms of Eggman's simulator or anything else like that. And basically though, unlike the forms of how it does on the console version, including Sonic Colors Ultimate, you're able to actually go through multitude of stages, and then once you're able to complete 3 of those acts in journey forms of specific stages in particular, that way you were able to actually get the Chaos Emeralds, usually relatively speaking. And as a result, you were able to actually unlock Super Sonic. Well, in the DS version though, I think this might actually be the only time we can able to show this off, especially concerning for the fact that in order to able to actually access to the 7th and the final special stage in the game, we must make sure about the fact that we can go into versus mode right here, and basically those about the fact that of course, much like the forms of how it does it in Sonic Rush, alongside with Sonic Rush Adventure, there is actually the multiplayer aspect by if you're trying to go onto DS download play, we're even trying to go for multi-pack play, so obviously that was about the fact that was how to able to do this by ourselves, and as you can see, not only we can able to actually replay through the exact same stages as before, but also we can now experience the 3rd act in some stages. So, at the moment right now, if you couldn't tell already, I haven't exactly unlocked everything for this point, so because of that though, yeah, I was expecting to try to able to actually unlock everything, but beggars can't be choosers, I guess, especially concerning for the fact that I'm only going to be focusing on the main story as it is. So anyway, for now on though, let's pick Act 3, especially concerning for the fact that, well, some stages are usually divided into laps. So, for instance, in Act 3, I don't think there's going to be any lap segments. So because of that though, everything else checks out there basically. So, and of course, much like the forms of how it does it in Sonic Rush, alongside with Sonic Rush Adventure, that basically though is about the fact that you can able to actually see 2 different perspectives whenever you're trying to play multiplayer and stuff like that. You're able to actually see some segments in the top screen and then some segments off the bottom screen, so yeah, you probably get the idea about that. But the obvious difference is this time around though is that we can no longer play as Blaze, and on top of that, well, we can able to actually access to colored powers. So because of that though, yeah, everything else will become to expect. Now of course, just like in Sonic Rush, alongside with Sonic Rush Adventure, you can able to actually use items, so that way you can able to disrupt your opponent. So yeah, everything else is self-explanatory, except now with color powers. So because of that though, I was quite pleasantly surprised about the fact that, well, as you can see, we've somehow finished the stage way more faster than I was expecting, and there it is. There's the 7th and the final special stage in the entire game. And out of all the actual special stages we can able to actually come across into, this one is actually going to be quite tricky, especially concerning for the fact that, as you can tell, we now need to start collecting 90 of those different colored orbs within 3 laps in between. So because of that though, yeah, wish me luck I suppose, especially concerning for the fact that, again, if you mess up one time though, obviously though, I highly suggest you're able to quickly pause the game and try to select restart, so just in case you can able to actually try the special stage again. So yeah, everything else will become to expect. Also, I just realized about the fact that no matter what though, the final color emeralds we can expect to get is obviously light blue, especially concerning for the fact that, well, obviously though, just like the console version, obviously though is about the fact that the color order for the Chaos Emeralds remains the same as the console version, including Sonic Colors Ultimate, which I think I've already on about that multiple times throughout the majority of this Let's Play so far. So anyway, a few things I want to talk about is about the fact that, well, today's date, of course, is the 8th of September today, in some cases in 2024 today. So relatively speaking, is about the fact that today is going to be the closing ceremony for the Paralympics 2024. Mind you, about the fact that despite the fact I don't normally watch that much of Paralympics as much compared to the forms of how it does it on the actual Olympics, like we've already established that before in about a couple of days ago. So potentially speaking, I was about the fact that it's kind of unfortunate about the fact I missed out quite a lot of action when it comes to the Paralympics as a result. Well, fundamentally speaking, I was about the fact that all we need to wait for right now is, of course, until 2 years' time we can able to actually experience the next Winter Olympics at some point in 2026. That's going to be located in Italy. And meanwhile, when it comes to Summer Olympics though, obviously though, the next one is going to take place in Los Angeles until 2028 for 4 years' time. So because of that though, yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to seeing this. So either way, now we get on to final lap of the special stages themselves. So either way, and obviously though is about the fact that every once in a while though is about the fact that we definitely need to avoid a lot of those spike balls at all times. But again, if you keep on getting hit multiple times though, obviously though you lose about 10 of those colored orbs. And also I sort of almost messed up right there, especially concerning about the fact I was expecting to try to able to actually get those 5 colored objects or anything else like that, and occasional moments about the fact that tricks or trying to able to actually jump off the actual half pipes is always important, especially concerning for the fact that, well, obviously though it is mandatory this time around though, unless if you, oh wow, that was the luckiest catch ever. And to make matters even better though, I actually got enough yellow orbs. So this means the special stages in Sonic Colors on the DS is finally concluded. And there's our 7th and the final Chaos Emerald, so that means we've gathered all of the Chaos Emeralds on the DS version of Sonic Colors. Now, if you're probably thinking to yourself, are you expected to able to actually unlock Super Sonic, and you can able to actually play all of the levels as Super Sonic? Well, that's an entirely different story on the other hand, because if we go all the way back to the world map, obviously that was about the fact that, like I said this before, this will be the only time we can able to interact with the Sonic Simulator game, but except the fact that obviously though, as soon as you go back into the world map, something interesting is about to happen, especially concerning for the fact that this particular scene right there was not on the Wii version, including Sonic Colors Ultimate, so this means we've got one more thing to take care of. So because of that though, I wonder what the actual fuss is all about, huh? So I suppose we should probably able to investigate while we're trying to able to go, well, let's just say about the fact that the up arrow is now showing up. So this means about the fact that we can now able to actually see, although before we get into more details about that, we can able to actually have a look around with the forms of other menu selections as well. Like for instance, if you try to press the I would say the L button for instance, it actually takes you to the actual stage selection screen rather than just trying to go into the specific worlds you want to go into. And if you press the R button right there, obviously though you can able to check out not only certain events for cutscenes, but it's also with the forms of illustrations you've somehow unlocked. In addition to that though, there's also sound tests as well, much like the forms of how it does it on any other Sonic games in the past. Well, to be more specifically though, when it comes to the forms of, well, mind you, about the fact that it has been about quite a few hours ago since I actually have last played this game for sure, just because no matter what though, it's about the fact that I'm, you know, really super duper excited about the forms of how the fact that at this point in time, we've only got about 18 more days to go until The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom will be releasing during that time. So because of that though, yeah, everything else will become to expect. So anyway, enough about that particular distractions for right now, so let's go all the way higher up and see what the actual specific stuff we've unlocked. Oh, what do we have here? we actually come across this very unpeculiar monster that we might as well able to actually have a face off against. This is what appears to be Nega Mother Wisp. Okay, that's interesting. Again, this was not on the Wii version, including Sonic Colors Ultimate, which I thought was a little bit disappointed, honestly. But regardless of such, though, it's about the fact that what makes the actual Wii version, including Sonic Colors Ultimate, a huge plus in my book, is that you can able to play as Super Sonic, and you can able to play as him in every single levels throughout the game, except in Act 2 of Terminal Velocity, because as far as I'm aware, that level does not contain any rings at all. So because of that, though, you get the idea of what I'm talking about. So either way, something tells me about the fact that, oh wait a second, it may look like that Yakko needs help. So no matter what, though, we can now able to figure this problem out. So because of that, hopefully we'll try to able to deal with this particular Nega Mother Wisp of any sorts, and thanks to the power of the Chaos Emeralds, we can once again turn into Super Sonic. However, though, the biggest difference is this time, there's no Burning Blaze this time. So because of that, it's just Super Sonic all by himself. And it's kind of unfortunate we can't usually see the cool 3D model of Supersonic transformation again, ever since Enduring Forms have been not only in Sonic Rush, but as well as Sonic Rush Adventure. So either way, time for the true final boss in Sonic Colors on the Nintendo DS. This one appears to be, like I said before, Nega Mother Wisp. Now, as far as I'm aware, this boss is pretty self-explanatory. Basically, though, as you can see, we actually have a chance to able to actually charge up our attack. And basically what you can do with this is that in order to able to try to deal the damage, well, as you can tell, there's no boss gauge or anything else like that. So instead, we have to rely on, let's just say, this boss in particular does have 3 hits, technically speaking. Although in this first part right there, is that you need to launch those asteroid rocks right at back at the forms of those little tentacle arms. Now once you've done so with those 2 arms in particular, it's your chance to able to actually boost to win. And as a result, all you have to do in this part right here is to dodge a lot of projectiles and occasional laser attack that she decides able to actually summon within if you try to able to get closer or something like that. And every once in a while, though, is about the fact that much like any other Supersonic boss battles, is that it's always important to know collecting rings is important. So just in case you don't able to reach 0 rings, and as you can see, once you get close to this weak spot right there, you have to do a bit of a timing syndrome, because if you time it wrong, obviously though you have to restart the entire cycle again. So as far as I'm aware, this boss is actually not too shabby, even though sometimes I will admit that right away, it takes me a bit while to get used to with the actual specific mechanics of how this boss fight works. But regardless of everything else though, I really do appreciate about the fact that the music choice they somehow got in this final boss right here, which appears to be the instrumental version of Reach for the Stars. So because of that though, that's the only thing I'll give the actual massive credit for. So either way though, and also, as far as I'm aware, is about the fact that as soon as you're able to try to get into the actual boosting segment, basically though, you don't have to worry about the forms of the actual rings decides to drain down. Because, for instance, if we somehow manage to get to this point right here, the ring count does not decrease every time whenever you get to this point right here. Although if you try to take down these little tentacle arms, that your ring counts will still deplete. So either way though. Also, as far as I'm aware, if you dare touch the those purple stuff right there, I believe that actually slows you down. I'm not exactly sure about these red ones, to be more specifically though. Mind you, about the fact that it's been a very long time since I actually have last experienced this boss fight since on the original DS cartridge version. So either way, and I suppose we're now on to the final phase of the fight. So yeah, it's nothing that much of a challenge. I mean, you simply have to keep on doing that, ramps and repeat, and that's all you really have to do in this boss fight. So because of that though, all I will say is about the fact that, well, again, I do really like the idea of adding this particular inclusion of this particular extra super final boss right here, whilst then again, unlike in Sonic Colors as well as Sonic Colors Ultimate, that this was not included, mainly because no matter what though, yeah, it's a bit difficult to explain, because I know for a fact that, like I said this before, it's been about quite a few hours since I actually have last played this game for sure. But either way, now it's time to do the final boosting part right there, and then straight to the point, we can just simply keep on dodging her attacks, and also some projectiles, including some asteroid rocks as well. I believe if you do get hit by not only the laser, but as well as the asteroid rocks as well, I believe you will still able to continue your boosting as long as about the fact that you don't mess up in the actual timing thing right at the very end of that particular weak spot. So either way, chances are though is about the fact that it does take a bit of some time to try to get used to with defaults to try to dodge quite a number of things here and there. So, and there she goes. Because once we're done with that, I think something tells me is about the fact that she might able to actually turn into... Wow, look at her. She looks a lot more normal to me, especially concerning for the fact that for those of you following through our Let's Play of Team Sonic Racing, to be more specifically one of those racetracks in particular, that she will make a comeback in Team Sonic Racing, believe it or not. So, and once you look at that, we actually got ourselves the an S rank for once, whilst unlike the forms of how it does it in both Sonic Rush, alongside with Sonic Rush Adventure, as far as what I've heard anyway, that Sonic did somehow manage to got himself the C rank on Exception, and as a result though, it's not that great of a run. And as far as I'm aware, when it comes to like Sonic Rush Adventure for Deep Core, that Ray the Flying Squirrel also encounters the C rank as well, which is also not a great run. I'm guessing it's probably because of the ring capacity or anything else like that. So either way though, so it looks like apparently though that Yakko did mentions is that Nega or Mother Wisp was actually the Yakko's mom or anything else like that, which I think is actually kind of cool, especially concerning about the fact that, well, it's kind of an interesting introduction to Mother Wisp in particular. So yeah, it may look like we've now able to actually come to a point where we can now able to actually see the true ending of Sonic Colors on the DS. So I think to me though, getting the Chaos Symbols in this version in particular is kind of worth it to me though, especially concerning for the fact that not only we can able to see the new character was actually introduced during that time in 2010, but it's also about the fact it's a nice way to able to add it something new. But it also makes the Sonic Colors DS version story-wise makes it a little bit more interesting to say the least, especially not only we somehow bump into Sonic's friends, but as well as something new is about to be happening if you collect all 7 Chaos Emeralds basically. So either way, it's time to say goodbye to Yakko for the 3rd time through our channel. So yeah, the day is saved for reals this time, especially concerning for the fact that now we've actually taken care of a lot of complicated things, so now we can able to do whatever we wanted to. So either way, I suppose, no matter what though, there was technically the final thing I wanted to mention about before we get to my final thoughts of the DS version of Sonic Colors in particular. That's what appears to be about the fact that yes indeed, until tomorrow, not only does Splatoon 3 is going to celebrate its 2-year anniversary since their game's release, but also Knuckles the series on DVD and Blu-ray, at least specifically the UK version, is going to be releasing until tomorrow. So anyways, let's get my final thoughts of Sonic Colors for the Nintendo DS version. And I will say, I actually really had an enjoyable time experiencing this version in particular. Like for instance, it's about the fact that I feel like that the gameplay style looks remarkably very similar to the forms of Sonic Rush alongside with Sonic Rush Adventure, except your noticeable differences being is that obviously though we can't play as Blaze, which that's my only downside with this version in particular, but that's just mainly because I'm still basically more accustomed to playing as Blaze for the majority of the Sonic Rush gameplay style, but that's just me. But regardless of everything else though, I just really... well, I still like the plot though, especially that not only, as I said before, is about the fact that what makes the DS version so unique is that not only we've come across into similar locales as the forms of how it does on the console version, but it's also about the fact that the dialogue itself is remarkably different compared to the forms of how it does on the console version. But it's also about the fact that, well, in terms of more story details, I actually do like with the introduction to Mother Wisp or anything else like that. In addition to that though, it's about the fact that I do really love the new Wisps was added on this version in particular. Like, Red Burst is actually pretty cool, although I'm not a big fan of the forms of Violet Void to be more specifically, because it can be felt a bit difficult to control sometimes. But apart from those side of things though, the Wisps are once again pretty fun to use, just like the forms of how it does it on the Wii version, including Sonic Colors Ultimate as well. In addition to that though, it's about the fact that for the most part, the levels themselves are pretty fun to explore, except an Asteroid Coaster in my opinion, although it was able to make that particular level 10 times as much more difficult compared to the forms of how it does on the Wii version, including Sonic Colors Ultimate as well, which I understand that. And in addition to that though, it's about the fact I feel like the music on the DS version sounds pretty nice, all things considered. Well, despite the fact it was on a cartridge, to be more specifically the DS game card rather than on the discs, unlike the forms of how it does on the Wii version, but it does manage to still sound pretty dang good, even on the Nintendo DS as a matter of fact. So either way though, and technically speaking though, it's about the fact that in regards to the forms of controls wise, it takes a bit of a while to get used to, like I stated this before, about a couple of times ago. Plus it's mainly because about the fact that not only the trick system has been neutered, but it's also about the fact that, well, obviously though, we actually have ourselves some more movesets, like stomps, as well as the forms of some wall jumps, and homing attack, where it comes to likely you can now have yourselves a lock-on cursor. But I will have to admit that though right away, I honestly do recommend Sonic Colors on the DS completely, especially every nowadays. It's actually going to get a lot more cheaper these days, especially when it's like second-hand condition or anything else like that. Mind you about the fact that, well, it has been a very long time since I actually have last played the DS version of Sonic Colors for about quite a few years ago now, especially because I'm still basically more accustomed to the console version, including Sonic Colors Ultimate, despite how buggy that game can be sometimes. But thankfully though, patches is now a thing, so either way though, yeah, I suppose that's all I can really say about the forms of Sonic Colors on the DS. In fact, let me know in the comments down below of what you think about the forms of Sonic Colors on the DS. Have you experienced the game already? Or if not, well, obviously though, I will still say you can definitely recommend this particular version of the game too, especially though I will say I do enjoy Sonic Colors, at least for quite the majority of it. Although, despite the fact that the writing is a bit, kind of dated now, but regardless of everything else though, I still managed to enjoy it regardless with its issues. So either way though, yeah, not much else I can say about it. So because of that though, especially concerning for the fact that at this point in time, we've almost had 1 month left until Sonic X Shadow Generations will be releasing on multiple platforms, yes, including Nintendo Switch as well. So I'm still very curious to know about the fact that the Switch version is going to handle very, very well with Sonic X Shadow Generations, unlike the forms of how it does it on Sonic Colors Ultimate, because despite with the forms of some, you know, really bad load times on the Switch version of Sonic Colors Ultimate, alongside with the forms that the frame rate is actually dipping into 30 frames per second, just like the Wii counterpart. But regardless of everything else though, it's about the fact that, well, that's all I can really discuss upon it. So either way, so I suppose no matter what though, is about the fact that it may look like about the fact that we are basically almost done in regards to the forms of the majority of the DIM's Sonic games when it comes to doing Let's Plays department. So, as far as I'm aware, next up it will be, in terms of the forms of some next bunch of Sonic Let's Plays we're about to be doing, and that's what appears to be Sonic Generations for the Nintendo 3DS, before we dive right into Sonic X Shadow Generations, which I will admit it though right away, unfortunately though, that particular Let's Play of Sonic X Shadow Generations will be delayed until, specifically until next year, until in 2025. Because, much like in Sonic Colors Ultimate though, I do need some bit of practice when it comes to control schemes, as well as some new gameplay mechanics that's actually introduced in Shadow Generations, so I might able to actually do a couple of practice runs first, before we dive right into the actual Sonic X Shadow Generations. So, and also not to mention though, we're not going to spoil things too much in regards to the forms of Shadow Generations portion of the game, because obviously though, Shadow Generations was actually recently new, as opposed to the forms of how it does it in Sonic Generations, you know, with the fact that obviously though we can able to play that game again, but this time with the forms of, well, let's just say improvement commentary, alongside with the forms of improvement quality, even though the quality might look a bit identical, but I do realize about the fact that the load times have been improved for the likes of, depending on what version of the game you're playing on, either on the PlayStation 4 or Xbox One, PS5, etc, etc. But that's just the way I was expecting to try to mention about this anyway. So, regardless of such though, thank you guys so much for watching about Let's Play of Sonic Colors on the DS. I know it's been a lot of fun, and this is me, Tiana, from the likes of the Maxi Toys. And like I said before, up next in terms of our Sonic retrospective of Let's Plays, and that's what appears to be Sonic Generations for the Nintendo 3DS. So stay tuned for that. So I'll see you guys until soon. Bye!